Megan Harrow took one last look at the map on her phone, confirming that the path ahead was correct. The sun began setting behind her as she drove her old hatchback down the narrow road leading into the small town of Crow's Hollow. The route was barely visible on any digital map, which made it harder to believe that it had once been a thriving community. Now, only whispers and half-remembered stories kept it alive in the minds of people from the surrounding areas. As Megan entered the town's limits, a wave of unease settled over her. The houses were scattered and sparse, each one dark and lifeless. Her best friend, Kate, had disappeared 2 weeks ago, with her last known location being this very town. Kate, the vibrant, daring friend who had convinced Megan to go on countless adventures, had sent her a cryptic message the night she vanished, simply reading, "Find them." Crow's Hollow was her first stop in a desperate search, led only by rumors and old records she unearthed during sleepless nights. She prayed for a lead, any thread to pull that might unravel the truth of Kate's fate. She parked along a dirt road and stepped outside, the cool evening air carrying the faint whisper of the forest encroaching on the town. The most prominent building was the Tremain Mansion, an antiquated estate looming ominously at the end of the main street. Its gray facade was overgrown with ivy, and it seemed to watch over the town with a judgmental gaze. Meg recalled tales of a wealthy family who once lived in grandeur there, the Tremains, who had mysteriously vanished overnight decades ago, leaving no trace except for the mournful remains of their home. Ignoring her shivering instincts, she approached the mansion. The gravel path crunched beneath her feet, mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. An antique iron gate, surprisingly well oiled for its age, creaked open at her touch. Inside, the foyer was shadowed but not wholly uninviting. Moonlight filtered through ornate windows, casting patterns on the dusty floor. The air was thick with the scent of ancient wood and something more subtle, something floral, like wilting lilies. Megan felt a shiver of déjà vu, but ignored it, pressing deeper into the mansion. On the ground floor, she found remnants of life, a child's doll propped on a chair, a cracked teapot on a side table, and faded photographs along the walls. Faces stared out from another time, their eyes darkened by neglect. She paused on one photo, an elegant family portrait. The Tremains themselves, she surmised, their faces held a sternness that seemed to echo through the house. She climbed the staircase, each step creaking under her weight. The second floor was more foreboding, the long corridor punctuated by closed doors. Megan hesitated for a moment, then made her way to the room at the very end. The door swung open with surprising ease. Inside, the room was cluttered with forgotten relics, broken chairs, stacks of books with spines cracked and worn. A tall mirror stood against the wall, its surface dull and aged. But it was the odd marking on the floor that drew Megan's attention. A circle, etched into the wooden boards, filled with intricate symbols she couldn't decipher. Each glyph seemed to pulse with a quiet energy. Beneath her feet, Megan felt a vibration, subtle yet persistent. She reached for her phone to document the room, but just then, its screen blinked out, refusing to turn back on. Panic nibbled at her resolve. What was she doing here, alone, in a place no one dared to visit anymore? She rushed to the window, attempting to calm herself, looking out over the darkened town. That's when she noticed flickering lights in the distance, lost among the trees. They weren't stationary, but moved as if carried by people traversing the woods. Her instincts screamed to follow, and against her better judgment, she descended the stairs. Back outside, the chill had deepened, biting through her jacket. Megan forced herself across the lawn, slipping through the back gate that led towards the forest. Branches tangled her hair as she pushed through, focused on the distant glow which seemed more captivating now, almost as if it were guiding her. Each step into the woods felt heavier, as if the earth itself was trying to swallow her up. Yet she continued, eyes set on the strange lights that bled through the dense thicket. As she drew closer, the firelight resolved into people, dozens of them, standing in a misshapen circle, their faces obscured by shadows and hoods. Megan crouched behind a fallen log, heart pounding as she witnessed their eerie gathering. An older man seemed to lead them. He stood in the center, his presence commanding, and murmured in a language thick with sounds foreign to Megan's ears. The crowd began to sway and hum, a rhythm in sync with the unnatural vibration Megan had felt earlier. On impulse, her fingers brushed against the worn sigil stone she had fetched from the mansion floor, one of several embedded in the circle. She touched it now, feeling its coldness seep into her skin. The entire forest seemed to inhale, the hush before a great revelation. Megan's heart paused as her gaze caught a figure within the circle. It was Kate, standing at the back, her face illuminated by the firelight. She stared straight into the distance, expression blank. Unable to restrain herself, Megan called out her friend's name. The sound splintered the air, breaking the chant. Dozens of faces turned toward her in unison, the firelight revealing hollow eyes filled not with life, but something deep and unsettling. Kate's gaze flickered briefly with recognition. In that moment, Megan saw an unshed tear on her friend's cheek. A surge of hope and horror welled up, propelling her forward. Megan bolted from her hiding spot, intending to pull Kate from the insidious assembly. The forest resisted, branches clawing at her clothes and slowing her progress. The circle, too, reacted. The chanting transformed into a crescendo of chaotic sound, and the ground thundered beneath them. She reached Kate's side, grabbing her cold hand. Kate's body was lifeless, her skin pale and almost translucent under the moonlight. But her eyes flickered again, and for a fraction of a second, a whisper escaped her lips, a barely audible run. The rest happened intensely fast. The figures in the circle swarmed like shadows, their forms distorting in the firelight. They moved not as individuals, but as extensions of a single, malignant entity. Megan instinctively pulled at Kate, who seemed impossibly heavy, as though tethered to the spot by unseen chains. In a moment blur of desperation, Megan brandished the sigil stone. At her touch, the markings blazed momentarily with a fierce, silvery luminescence. The crowd recoiled as if struck by a powerful gust, and their unnatural presence wavered before dissolving back into the woods. The light from the stones revealed a frail connection between Kate and the earth beneath them, a series of vines or roots tightening around her ankles. With the light's aid, Megan managed to break the spell that held her friend in place, cutting through the bonds with supernatural precision. As the forest came alive with mourning wails, Megan hauled Kate onto her shoulder, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. They stumbled back through the woods, driven by fear and a sense of salvation barely hanging on a thread. Behind them, the sinister assembly melted back into shadowy silence, their ephemeral spell shattered by the sigil's light. Once back at the mansion, the ominous vibrations in the ground ceased, and the ancient air felt displaced, as if the forest had exhaled in relief. A heavy door slammed. The night sky stretched above them brightly, indifferent to the chaos below. Megan and Kate rested in the Tremain Mansion's sheltered shadow, their hearts racing against the shared horror that lay beyond those trees. Kate revived slowly, her eyes ray, gaining their familiar spark. Megan held her close, refusing to let go even as tears of relief streamed down her cheeks. "Thank you," Kate mumbled, her voice laced with exhaustion. "They wanted something we didn't understand. We never should have come here." Her friend's words ended in an unspoken tremor, one Megan recognized well, the stubborn line between terror and tears. She didn't press for more. They would leave, and with them, the haunting tales of Crow's Hollow might finally fade too. Before they made their way back to Megan's car, Kate paused, a frown creasing her brow. She looked back at the darkened mansion for the last time. "The Tremains, they're connected to this," she murmured. "It's their ritual, what they left behind." Already, the details slipped away from Kate's memory, elusive and fragmented. Megan nodded, pretending not to notice how the sigil stones had disintegrated into dust in her pocket, their job complete. Together, they stepped away, leaving behind the specters of Crow's Hollow and the secret horrors of its silent mansion. The road and the woods stretched ahead, leading towards warmth and safety, back to a world that breathed with mundane life. But as their footsteps carried them away from the past, Megan cast one final glance at the crimson-streaked horizon, the timeless mansion framed softly against it. And for a fleeting moment, she could have sworn she saw a silhouette at the window, a face with eyes like shadows, watching, waiting, always waiting.